Okay, so last night was pretty wild. In regards to San Diego Comic-Con and the announcements. For my Marvel and DC folks, yesterday definitely had some cool news to come out of it. I know DC unveiled their new DC, universe logo with the Superman, and then it rotates the DC logo. I'll be one of those people to say I very much loved the Snyder universe. I loved Henry Cavill as Superman. I enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I enjoyed Zack Snyder's Justice League. I don't consider myself an acolyte to that extent. Like, I'm not trying to, just completely disregard what's being done. I will admit, it's going to take a lot, and I'm skeptical with what the latest iteration of Superman is going to be, just because I am one of those people that I'm not gonna lie, like, I really wanted to see what they could have continued on with the Zack Snyder universe, especially when we finally got the Snyder cut and we finally got to see Darkseid and all that. So I will definitely be one of those people that I want to try to be, as open-minded as possible, but that's going to be a tough one for me to get over. I'll admit that. But I'm willing to see. I mean, I am. With that said, though, my goodness, did Marvel throw the gauntlet down. Oh, man. So at this point, I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're already aware. It was officially announced last night that Robert Downey Jr., our Iron Man in the MCU, is back in the MCU, but not as Tony Stark officially, as Victor Von Doom, Doctor Doom. Wow. I mean, at least that's what I'm led to believe. Unless they hit it that it's a Tony Stark in name, my gut tells me is that this is a Tony Stark variant who's Victor Von Doom. Or they could go the comic book approach where they swapped, minds and bodies at some point. I don't know. I mean, the MCU could play that a few different ways. Regardless, Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom in the MCU in Avengers 5 Doomsday, coming out May of 2026. And I assume he'll also be in Secret Wars, which is May 2027. And along with that, they got the Russos back, and they got one of the writers back. You guys could quote me on it. I can't remember if it was Marcus or McFeely, but apparently one of the writers is back to write those films, those two Avengers movies. Wow. To say that Kevin Feige and the MCU team have probably been listening to a lot of the criticisms and they've been trying to think of ways to right the ship, I think this is evident of that. I mean, what other way can you say it? As a fan, I'm not going to lie, like, there's a little bit of mixed emotions there when it comes to Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU. And what does that mean? And honestly, I can see all the sides to this. Personally, I'm glad that we're not just resurrecting Iron Man for the sake of it, because to me, I've never wanted them to do that. I wanted them to maintain the Tony Stark character arc. It's one of the best character arcs in film, from a guy that starts out as a playboy philanthropist that doesn't really care about anyone other than himself, to a father who makes the ultimate sacrifice, a father and a husband that makes the ultimate sacrifice for the world. I think that's a beautifully done arc. And I didn't want anything, I don't want anything to take away from that. But man, Marvel, they had to do something, because the writing was on the wall with the character of Kang. And that honestly is a whole other video into itself, but let's just call it what it is. For the reasons that, most people are aware of, Kang was probably not going to be a degree of which they were going to continue down. Now, absolutely, they could have recast the character. And part of me thought that's what they were going to do. But I can see why they went the direction that they did. Because if you're Marvel and you're trying to get the masses to be excited for the upcoming projects, especially doing this right when Deadpool and Wolverine opens, love for Marvel in people's mouths is at an all-time high again, because people are talking about this film. People are excited about it. This announcement was very strategic, and it was very perfect in that sense, because within the weekend, generally speaking, most people are going to forget about Kang and are going to stop talking about Kang, because now you have Robert Downey as Doctor Doom. Not everyone. You'll get some people out there, Kang fans, obviously, that will hold on to it. But, in my opinion, it's to say that Kang was kind of let down by writing well more than anything Jonathan Majors could have done. I feel like they could have recast the character, because I enjoy Jonathan Majors playing him. I thought he did a phenomenal job with what he had to work with, especially from the from the Loki series into Ant-Man 3. But you can count me as one of those people that I absolutely am in the camp of the writing, really, especially in Ant-Man 3, let that character down as far as being a big bad and imposing. And I can elaborate at another time, for that, but why do I think they didn't recast? They could have recast. They absolutely could have recast the character. I think that would have worked, but there was a reason they didn't. And I think it was probably at some point they decided we just need to distance ourselves completely. We need to go a completely different direction. Now, I'm not going to lie. I know that this would have never happened, but of course, like the memes you see, if Robert Downey Jr. had been like, like how he played it in Tropic Thunder, if he'd have done that for Kang, it could have worked. I mean, but to be fair, obviously there's a reason why in modern times you're not going to see something like that. I feel like there was a logic behind the character he played in Tropic Thunder when he darkened himself. Of course, you're not going to see that now. Like, that just wouldn't be the way to play it. I was also one of those people that thought the actor that played the High Evolutionary, I would have been fine with him playing a variant, like him being a Kang variant and thusly playing Kang. I thought that was cool. If you would have wanted to make sure you kept it as an African-American actor, I think that would have worked. But I'm not going to lie to you. This was a smart strategic play on Marvel's end. It really was. And it makes sense why they did it. Everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. Everybody loves the Russos, and they've been gold. And let's just be honest, outside of Deadpool and Wolverine playing in theaters right now, which is going to be a commercial success, a critical success, a success with the fandom, Marvel has been struggling. They have been, box office wise. I mean, the numbers indicate that. Their last major hit, was Spider-Man No Way Home, which it's been some years. It's crazy. That is nuts to even say. So the way I see it, and kind of talking with some of my friends, I can't imagine the amount of money it took to get Robert Downey Jr. to sign on for this project, because notoriously his contracts were, they had to pay to get him to play Tony Stark in these films. I can't imagine the blank check that they probably wrote to get him back, along with the Russos and one of the writers. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am now one of those fans that after seeing that announcement last night, whereas before I was skeptical how Avengers Kang Dynasty and how Avengers Secret Wars were going to play, especially the way that the writing had been, I was very skeptical as a fan. Now, after last night's announcement, I can look at those two movies and say, regardless of how much they spent to get them, they've all but guaranteed that each one of those films will clear $1 billion. That's just me speaking ahead of time as a fan of the IP. I feel like they just threw the gauntlet down and said each of these two Avengers movies is going to break $1 billion at the box office. They all but guaranteed it by having that team of people be involved. And we don't even know all of what the plot yet is, or we don't know, is he carrying the name Victor Von Doom? Is he carrying the name Tony Stark? We don't know. We don't even know any of those details. I assume it's Victor Von Doom that he's, playing that, but he could be a Tony Stark variant with the name of that, which I think would be kind of cool. All that to say, this was a calculated move, and Kevin Feige knew that if he got this together and hit this announcement at the time that they did, one, MCU love right now is at I wouldn't say all-time over Endgame high, but it's at a high that it hasn't been at in a while, just with everybody talking about Deadpool and Wolverine and it being in theaters and all the talk about that. It's getting MCU in people's mouths. You have that on the weekend of San Diego Comic-Con. You pack Hall H, and then you nail this announcement when everybody's watching. You get Robert Downey Jr., you get the Russos. What a grand slam. I mean, this is one of those that I have to tip the cap and say well done to the Marvel team, because again, where a lot of the fandom, myself included, was really skeptical about what we had to work with going forward, like what that was going to look like, what the projects were going to be, what were we even going to do with Kang? Like, were we going to continue with that? There was so much unknown. Now they have basically all but said they've wiped that, and a lot of people aren't even going to question it. Fairly, there are a lot of people that don't like this and are not really on board with it, and I won't begrudge them of that. I mean, to be fair, the MCU Thanos is one of my favorite iterations. I mean, I've got a bunch of the hot toys. I've got statues. I mean, I love what they did with that character. If you were a Thanos fan solely from the comic books and loved that, you may not exactly love what they did with the MCU version. I love comic book Venom. That's what I grew up with as a kid. Eddie Brock, White Spider on the chest, all of that. So when you see some of the film adaptations from when Topher Grace played him, and even as what Sony's done, and I love Tom Hardy playing Eddie Brock, but when you see how they've done some of the adaptations, I can see there's some things I don't necessarily care for. So all that said, as they adapt some of these IPs and they make these films, and people have said that about Ultron, where they relegated it to one film and it shouldn't have been, etc. I can see that there will be some fans that will not like this move and that are not on board with Robert Downey Jr. playing Victor Von Doom. They wanted Cillian Murphy, who I think would have killed it. There was other actors that had their names thrown in. I know Henry Cavill was rumored for a while. I think that would have been kind of cool to see. But I get why they did this. I absolutely get why they did it. And knowing what they've created before with the Russos and Downey involved, I, as a fan, this is going to be one of those times that I'm like, all right, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. After Endgame, I said that with the majority of the projects. And I'm not going to lie to you, in my opinion, I think I was kind of let down with some of them. I didn't exactly love Thor Love and Thunder for various reasons. I wasn't over the moon with Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. There was a lot of products that came out that it didn't hit the same way. This, though, I feel like if they do this well, this is going to be huge. And like I said, I feel like you all but guarantee each of these Avengers films, which aren't even probably being filmed yet, I think. I don't believe they're even being filmed yet. They're going to each break over $1 billion now. Like, you've almost all but guaranteed it, in my opinion. I just don't see how it won't. You have Robert Downey Jr. playing Doctor Doom, and you're probably going to see some iteration of this villain, I would imagine, teased in the Fantastic Four or some way, because I guess the Fantastic Four is taking place in the 60s. I haven't seen the trailer for it yet. But wow. What an announcement to make. And they timed it perfect. And for Kang fanboys out there, I'll just say again, sorry. I think it's possible that they might still do something. I mean, who knows? They may end up doing a recast, or you might see an appearance of the character again. My gut, though, tells me, because all I've seen Marvel do is not even say the name, and all I have seen them do is not speak Kang's name and position themselves to move further from the character and distance themselves from not only Jonathan Majors, but the character Kang. I feel like you're just going to kind of see it relegated and done. That's what my gut tells me. I blame a lot of the writing on that. I really do. And again, that can be another video into itself that, we can talk that. But let's just say that in much of the ways that they did Thanos very well with how they wrote, and you figure by this point they have that knowledge and they have that way of knowing how things work, of, show but don't tell, and that type of stuff. You'd figure by this point in the phases and the writing and the experience and their accomplishments, they would be better posed, better poised on how they would want to work Kang. I just don't feel like we really ever got that, especially in Ant-Man 3. And so now you're at a point where Doctor Doom is coming in late into this, but he is very much going to be the big bad, I assume. I get the vibe of that's where they're pivoting. And the fandom is pretty much, the masses have all but kind of gone on with that. So I'm sure that's going to rub the Kang stands wrong, and I get it. But like I said, I feel like there was obvious reasons why they had to do something. And while I agree they could have recast, I also understand why they didn't. Because at the end of the day, Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom is probably going to hit and resonate and break more banks than a recast of Kang. Agree or disagree, I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, but to me, that's just from a business perspective as well as not just much of a fan perspective. I can see why they did that. Sure, it's right to be skeptical, but man, usually when you get the mix of the Russos with the writers and with Robert Downey, it's hard to bet against this. Doesn't mean that it won't perform. I mean, there's always a chance that it could end up being not good. But I don't know, man. I kind of am inclined to think like this was a hit. And this absolutely stole the show of Comic-Con. Regardless of what anybody else did, regardless of what announcements DC did have or anybody else had, this was the absolute, just blah, this broke it. This broke the internet last night. All my friends, everybody was posting about it. So pretty crazy. I'm interested to see how they plan on making this work. I'm interested to see you know, because we are in the multiverse, you know, like what they do with this and what the consequences are and how they plan on packaging this. I'm one of those people that's excited for it, but I know Hot Toys is already salivating over the Doctor Doom variants they can make. So I think it'll be funny to see that, or not just necessarily funny, because it'll be serious, and I'm sure I'll end up spending money on the various things that they create, but more like to say exciting. I'm excited to see what, you know, companies like Hot Toys and a lot of the marketing stuff of what they're going to do with this, and man, what they can do with the Doctor Doom armor. Is it going to be kind of Iron Man-esque? Is it going to be more cartoon comic Doctor Doom-esque? I guess we'll see. But it's, if nothing else, what you can almost unequivocally say is that the excitement level for Marvel right now, with Deadpool and Wolverine playing in theaters and just absolutely making a ton of money, and now this announcement happening on opening weekend of that movie with San Diego Comic-Con, and all of this to carry it, the current like excitement level of the, you know, of things with Marvel is at a high it hasn't been at in a very long time, in many years. I think that's fair to say. So super excited to see where that goes. Oh man, like, what do you guys think? Was this a good idea? Was it a bad idea? Do you think they should have recast, you know, Kang? Do you think they should have kept with that? You know, by all means, again, I don't expect everybody to feel the same way I do about it. Would love to hear thoughts and feedback from, you know, anybody out there who watches, you know, the video. And I look forward to engaging and creating more videos like this. And then eventually I'll start to step into some of the more gearhead side of this stuff too, and it won't just be the geek part. But thank you for watching. Appreciate anybody taking the time to give this video a view. And I look forward to making more of these and engaging with more of you guys next. And let's wait with bated breath and see what Feige and those guys decide to do. But again, very excited, really looking forward to it, and we'll see what happens.